your footsteps to retrace. All hope will then be gone, and dim your face. Oh, here is Paul. Oh, here is Paul. Oh, here is Paul. Oh, here is Paul.
Brought my suitcase here so I want to talk a little bit tonight about the main thing. And when you think about priorities, we all have different priorities, don't we? I talked in Sunday school a couple times about priorities. One of the things we've talked about the last couple of weeks was doing a spiritual checkup. And when you think about a checkup, we all think about going to the doctor. And, you know, they ask you, how's your blood pressure, your weight. You got to be honest about all that stuff when you go to the doctor, or else the diagnosis is wrong, isn't it? So when you think about a spiritual checkup, we've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks, and the first thing was you got to be saved. You got to make sure you're saved in order to check up on anything. And we've gone through several things. The last lesson on that was today, and it was kind of ironic that one of the points was priorities. And I've talked about priorities in Sunday school before, but priorities are important, aren't they? I know for me, every day at work, when I get to the end of my day and wrap it up, I tend to type up a sheet, just a little simple spreadsheet that I need for me to take home so I can kind of keep my mind on what's going on, and also so the next morning when I get in, I've already got a list of kind of this is the way I'm going to get my day going. Now that's all subject to change because I'm in transportation, and so that changes throughout the night. But priorities also change with age, don't they? When I was 20, my priorities were a lot different than they are at 43. Things seem to work out that way. Joy's got a friend that we've been praying for. We've asked prayer here. Her name's Shelley, and her mom found out, I'd say about 90 days ago, that she's got cancer. Priorities changed, and they changed quickly. She just found out 2 weeks ago that they told her she's got, let me take that back. Found out about a week ago that she has about 2 weeks. Priorities change, and they change rapidly. What is a priority? When you think about priority, what is a priority? How would you define that? It says it's a thing that is regarded as more important than another, superiority in rank, position, or privilege. So when you think about that word priority, what takes the most importance? What is the most important thing in your life? You know, we talk about, I think the deacons did a survey a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, somebody could correct me, about our church attendance. And why do we think church attendance is down? And I'm sure we're not the only church that asks some of those questions sometimes, are we? Because church is not a priority for people anymore. God is not a priority for people anymore. We talk about 9/11, and Dad brings that up quite a bit, and I'm glad that he does, because it's definitely something that he hadn't forgotten. He served, and it stays on his mind, and it keeps us all aware of that. But when that happened, churches got flooded with people. Then all of a sudden priorities changed, and people started finding other things to do and other things that go on. So for me, the last couple of months in Sunday school and just trying to prepare for lessons and think about things, priorities have become an issue for me. Trying to think about, where am I at? What are my priorities? And I'm a visual person. I don't do well at work when people come up to me and say, hey, let me read this to you. Just give me the paper and let me read it. Don't read it to me. I don't operate that way. I've got to see it. When I see it, then I function better. So if you got something you want me to know, write it down. If I read it, it sticks in here. Don't tell me, because I'll forget before you finish the sentence. I'm visual. I've got to see it, and that's just the way God made me. So it's the way that it is. So I brought a few things that for me sometimes are priorities, and then I want to get into talking about things. And some of these may be priorities for you. Maybe this will help us remember some things. Brought some work gloves. Sometimes priority for me becomes things around my house. You're probably that way. I took a day off work Friday. I took a vacation day because seemed like now that this time change is going on, I get off, it's dark, I go in, it's dark, and it's not even changed yet. Saturdays and Sundays, we rip and run, and my yard looked terrible. And so I said, I got to have a vacation day because I got to get some yard work done. I got to catch up on some things at my house. It's not where I want it to be. Some other things sometimes that have become a priority for me, and this is a little card, Jackson. I'll put it back in your toy box. How many of you that you come to church sometimes and you got car trouble, or you're trying to think about your automobile, or you got other things on your mind? Because we have busy weeks, don't we? And it's hard to set that stuff aside for me. Sometimes I sit through church and I go home and I couldn't even tell you what happened sometimes, just being honest, because my mind is somewhere else. My priorities aren't in check. You know, so what? I mean, not so what that it doesn't matter, but how many of you let a flat tire bug you about a car? How many of you let an oil change? How many of you let a noise or a rattle keep you from hearing what God had to say when we came to church? I have. It's all about priorities, isn't it? We tend to put all these things in front of other things that sometimes they don't matter. I think about time. Time for me is hard to find sometimes. It seems like there's 24 hours a day and I got 36 hours worth of stuff I got to get done. It seems like from the moment I get up, I took Friday off and was taking a vacation day, and at 5:30 I was up sending emails and talking to people and doing things, and I'm not at work. And Joyce said, "Can't you just let it go?" And I'm like, "No, I can't. I got, I make 3 strips mowing the grass, and I'm back in on the phone. Hey, do this, man, send this email, take care of that." Time. Where does it go? Joy and I were talking not long ago. You think about, we've been married 20-something years, 22 years this year. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. That was a priority, I guess. I should have known that before I said it. 22 years coming up in November. The kids have all grown up. We got one left in college. Speaking of that, that's another priority I got in my bag. We've got, 2 that have grown up. Brittany's got married. We got a grandson. Haley's got out doing good. She's teaching school. Time flies, man. It flies by so fast. There was a little girl that Joy babysits that was talking about Ariel and the Little Mermaid. And I said, man, I can still probably tell you every word to the Little Mermaid, because when Joy and I started dating, I think it was Haley and I that were dating, because when I would go over, we watched the Little Mermaid about 4 nights a week, and that's just, that was our date. But time will get away from you. It better be a priority. When you think about time and where we're at in today's society, we're getting close, aren't we? Time's drawing near. God might say tonight that I've had enough, and I'm just going to send Jesus back, and we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Priorities. Time is a big thing. Another thing for me at times, and not so much now, because I tell Joy I'll sleep when I'm dead, but rest. How many people burn the candle at both ends, and when they need rest, church is the thing that takes the back burner so they can get some rest? How many times do we do that? How many times has somebody said, "Oh, I was just so tired, I couldn't make it. Just so tired." You don't miss work on Monday morning because you're tired, do you? I don't. I was just talking to Jackson the other day because he got sick Friday. He's having some little stomach issues, not viral, we don't really know what's going on, some stomach issues in the mornings. And he got sick, and he had thrown up on the way to school and didn't have any more clothes, and so Brittany brought him to the house, and he was talking about, being sick, but he felt pretty good pretty fast. And I said, "Isn't that amazing how things change?" And I said, "G Daddy can fix that for you. If you don't go to school, you don't get to do anything else. We'll change some priorities in the way that it works." Naps are good. Sleep is good. Sometimes it's overrated if you're staying busy. But it's good, isn't it? But why does church have to be the thing that you give up? Why does the nap have to bleed over into discipleship training? Why does the Saturday night have to bleed over into missing a Sunday school class? It's priorities, isn't it? What's at the top of the list? I told Jackson last night, he's getting old enough, he doesn't play football, but he gets into it a little bit, so he watched the Ole Miss game with me, and he's talking and asking questions, and then I flip it over to Florida State and Notre Dame, and I'm watching that because of the rankings that it might have for Ole Miss. And he's asking questions. He said, "I want to stay up and watch it." I said, "You can stay up, but the alarm clock's going to ring early in the morning." And he made it through the game and watched it with me, but this morning the alarm clock was way too early for him. And I said, "You're going to get up, buddy. If you're going to stay up, you're going to get up." And so rest sometimes is something that's a priority for me. For some of the others, I got several little things in here. Sports become a priority, don't they? Sports are a priority. For me, sports used to be a priority. When I was younger, when Marcus was younger, when Stephen was younger, that's all we did. We were outside playing ball nonstop, in the house breaking stuff, playing ball. I mean, we just played ball. And if you'd asked me at 10, I was going to be pro at whatever it was going to be. I mean, that's just the way it was going to be. I thought I was going to be pro at it. And obviously, I'm far from being pro at anything. But that's the way that it was. Jonathan Hearn got a softball team, and we're playing fall softball now. And my priorities have changed. I mean, at 20, I was diving, wanting to play every night. Now I'm thinking 2 more games, man. 2 more games. If I can make it through without a hospital trip, I'm doing all right. Things are going good. I'm getting it. You know, I'm getting better. Let me read some statistics to you about sporting events. And I'm as big a sports fanatic as anybody. But for you guys that are making sports, or you girls that are making sports your priority, you parents that sports become a priority, and my dad, anybody that knows him, my dad loves sports. But sports was never his number one priority for us. It was church. I knew in high school, and I've told the story before, I think, I came to church in football pants and a stinking sweaty shirt on Wednesday nights a lot of times because my dad told the football coach, at this time he will be leaving because we have church. And he will be going to church. There's a lot of times when we played ball and they would have a Wednesday night game or a rain out or something that might pop up. He won't be there. He just won't be there. You can lose, you can get somebody else, he can not start, he can do whatever the case may be. He's not practicing, he's not playing. Church is going to be first. Well, let me read some statistics to you. Baseball, these are chances of going pro. High school players, there's 471,000 baseball players that play high school baseball. 31,264 of those will go to college to play, and 806 will make it to the pros. That's 11.6% of college athletes that go. 0.6% of high school athletes actually go pro. Football, 1.7% of college players go pro. There's 1,108,000 in high school, 67,000 in college, and 255 that actually get drafted and play in the NFL. Hockey, 1.3% of college, 0.1% of high school players. Basketball is 1.2%. Soccer's 1%. Look at what are the odds? You know, what are the odds? And there may be people, there may be somebody here that does it, and that's good. Bill Selby made it. He's one of the 11%. He's one of the ones that did it. But the reality is you're probably not. So what really matters in the long run? I can tell you for sure, 100% certainty, if you don't keep your kids in church and keep them involved and keep them seeing God's things, they're going to do something they don't need to be doing. I can tell you 100% certainty, if they're not saved, they're going to hell. I can tell you 100% certainty, if they are saved, they're going to heaven. So what odds are better, and what's the most important thing? For me, there was a time sports was it. It was a priority, and it drove me to try to do better. Some other things that go on, and hunting. I mean, I'm not a big hunter. Terry Harden and Chad and some of these guys know a lot more about it than I do. Drake knows a lot more about it than I do. He's teaching me about it. But isn't it amazing that when hunting season comes around, it becomes a priority for people? Skip church. Oh, we're going to be hunting Sunday morning, or fishing if that's your thing. We're going to be doing whatever. What's more important? What is your priority? Is it God, or is it an 8-point or a 10-point? You know, where are we at when it comes to those type things? Where am I at? All of us can be tempted by different things. All of us have different things that affect us. I'm in trucking, so I got a truck. And that becomes a big priority for me. And sometimes I put things on the back burner. I'm guilty of putting my family on the back burner for my job a lot of times. I find out after the fact, but I don't want, Joyce said Friday, well, can't you just let it go? I said, I can't. I don't want to let anybody down. You know, I got good work ethic, and I'm going to go to work. If I'm sick, I'm going to go to work. If I don't feel good, I'm going to go to work. If something hurts, I'll hurt when I get home. I'm going to go to work. And I'd push and I push and I push, and Marcus does it, Stephen does it. I mean, and there's a lot of you guys that do it. That's not what I mean. But Dad and Mom instilled that in us that you work. But sometimes I let work become so much of a priority that I might miss out on a few things. How many times do can you just take a second to just breathe sometimes and say, you know what, that'll be here tomorrow. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Or at least don't take it home with you. At least don't bring it to church with you. I'm terrible at that. I know if we go on vacation, and Joy will tell you, it'll take me 2 days to unwind, and then 2 days before we start to come back, I'll already be winding back up, getting ready to go again. I'll get a 7-day vacation. I'll get 2 or 3 right in the middle. But it's going to take me 2 days just to clear my mind and kind of unwind out of it and hope I don't get a phone call in the middle of it, because then it's just geared right back up to solving what's going on. And then before I get ready to go back, I'm already starting to think, all right, when I get back, I know this is happening. I got this meeting. I got to do this and this. Work drives me. It drives. And sometimes that priority becomes a problem. There's some of you that let your job become a priority issue. Don't get me wrong. We have to work. I had a problem with the driver a couple of weeks ago, and we were in a little meeting discussing it, and I told him, I said, you better get your priorities in check. And I said, that's all I can tell you is you better get them in check. And I said, God better be your first priority. Your second priority better be your family, and your third priority needs to be this job. And in order to take care of your family, you might need to start taking care of priority number 3, or we're going to have an issue that you're going to be looking for another job. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves about our priorities, don't we? But as far as work driving me, let me tell you a story about work. I worked at another trucking company when Joy and I got married. I got hired there, and I worked there 14 years, and about 6 years in, or 7 years, there were 4 owners, and one of the owners passed away. He was a silent partner. He died, passed away in Dallas, and that left 3 owners. Husband and wife were 2 of them, and then a third. The third owner got bought out, so that left a husband and a wife. They told me, I want you to have the company. I'm going to sell you the company the same way we bought the company, no money out of your pocket, just help us keep building it. The company's going to be yours. Joy and I talked about it. It was going to be coming out. I mean, like I said, no cash out of my pocket. They were just going to keep getting their salary for 2 or 3 years, and I was going to take over the company and own the company and go. And I worked. I mean, I did everything imaginable because it was going to be mine. 14 years I'd worked there and got called into a conference room one day to hit a button and say, let me introduce you to the new owner. My priorities changed. That company was my priority because that was, man, this is going to be for me. This is my family. I'm going to do it. We're going to da-da-da-da-da-da. One button, and it was over with. One button, and there was a new owner. I know a guy that just lost his job. He had worked at a company 25 years, and they came in and laid him off. 25 years. If work's your priority, you might have a problem. You better have your priorities in line. A few other things that can become a priority, and I'll hurry with these. Knowledge. And again, I said I'm visual, but I'm not a big reader. So everything that I buy or Joy buys is short-storied for sure. If I'm going to read it, it's quotes or sentences or things that can just trigger something in my mind, because I'm not going to sit and read 400 pages of anything. I'm just not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. But knowledge. How many of you kids in school that your schoolwork becomes a priority Sunday night at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock? I lived it. We had 3 of them, I know. I got to stay home. I got to study. Should have been studying all afternoon. Or you're going to be up awful late studying when you get home, but you're going to go to church one way or the other. So knowledge can be a problem, can it? We can let, trying to get ahead and learn and do the right things, we can let it become an issue. Fortunately for us, this is not a problem, but sometimes babies, I can remember when the kids were little, and priorities about what we were going to do, where we were going to go, how we were going to go, drastically were different when they were 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. That's what I told somebody the other day. there's a guy at work that is 62 years old, and him and his wife are trying to have a baby. I said, man, I honestly, Joy would be a widow because I would die. I mean, I would have a heart attack. I mean, there's no way. But he is 62 years old, and they've decided they want to have a baby. Go figure. I mean, I don't know, but priorities. We can let our kids sometimes take us away from the things that matter instead of leading them to the things that matter. You know, God gave us our kids, God gave us our grandkids, and man, what a blessing they are. Don't take that for granted. If that becomes a stumbling block, God can certainly remove it, can't He? Let leading them to the right thing be a priority, not them be the priority that keeps them from coming to church or keeps you from coming to church and doing what God calls us to do. Another thing that can be a priority is money. You can see I don't have a lot of it, $2 $1 bills. Money, people get so consumed and driven by money. I got to have it, I got to have more, I got to have more, I got to have more. You just push and push and push. I know there's a guy that I know that makes really good money, but if he doesn't work about 25 to 30 hours of overtime a week, he'll stroke out. He's got to do it, and because otherwise he's not going to be able to get the light bill paid. That's just the way he lives. He's got to do it because money was a priority. He's got to drive. You name it, he's got to have it. If he thinks of it, he's got to have it. And he's got himself in such a financial mess now that his priorities are all shaken up and all out of whack because of that. And he's just, I don't know how he's going to get out of it because his priorities are messed up. And then the last thing, and we'll read some scripture, but family. How many times do we let family, and that's be a priority? And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it shouldn't take place over God, should it? How many times do people say, we're not going to be at church Sunday because my kinfolks are coming in? Tell your kinfolks to come to church. Or tell them, I'll see you when I get back, but we're going to go to church. Dad was excited a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, when he had his family in town, and they were going to get together Sunday afternoon. But he told them on the front end, which none of them questioned it to begin with, but he told them on the front end, love to go to lunch with y'all, but we got to leave at whatever time because we got to be back for discipleship training in church. It wasn't just because he's a preacher that he did that. He did it because that's what he believes, because that's just how he is, and that's the way that it is. Why can't you and I be that way? Family's important. It should be a priority, but it shouldn't take precedence over the main thing. In Matthew chapter 16 and verse 26, and we'll hurry here. It says, for what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? What does a man gain if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? All of these things down here, what do they really matter at the end of the day if I go to hell? What does it really matter at the end of the day if one of my kids goes to hell? What does it really matter at the end of the day if one of your kids goes to hell? You think, oh, I know they're saved, and I know, keep them in church. Keep them plugging in church. You keep plugging in church. My kids never cared one thing about what I said, and still don't, to be honest. If I'm talking, they're blocking me out as fast as they can. I know that. And I'm talking a lot to them, and they say, you repeat yourself. I said, I have to, because you don't get it till about the 5th time. But I just keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. But they don't care what I say. What they care about is what I do. And yours are the same way. Don't tell them you love them. Show them you love them. Don't tell them God's important. Show them God's important. Don't tell them church is important. Show them church is important. I don't care if they get mad. You shouldn't care either. My dad never cared one time about my feelings when it came to stuff like that, I can assure you. And if he did, it was a feeling I didn't want to have because I was doing something wrong. It's not about whether they're happy or sad when it comes to certain things. Their priorities are not your priorities. And as a parent, it's your responsibility. It's mine. I remember when Brittany was dating, she hated my guts, and she still probably gets mad at me about stuff. But I would tell her all the time, I said, I have nothing better to do than to get you through this. So, I mean, I'll get up at midnight and aggravate your boyfriend, or I'll get up at 10 and call him. I'll do whatever I got to do. I don't care. And that's the way we need to be. Priorities. Where are your priorities at? What does God have to say to you about your priorities? There's a quote in this book. It says, "Tell me to what you pay attention, and I will tell you who you are." If somebody looked at your life, would they say, "Man, they're a Christian. They're a God-believing, serving Christian"? Or would they say, "Man, that dude's a sports fanatic. Man, if there's a Sunday game on, he's going to tell you the stats. He's not going to miss any game out there. That guy, man, he's the best hunter I know. He hunts every Sunday. He's the best athlete I know. He plays in a softball tournament every weekend, and they win, and they do good." Or his kids are the best at everything. They do so good at baseball. They do so good at football. They do so good at basketball, band, you name it. All the stuff that they do, they're so good at it, man. That's what defines them. So what? So what? Man, that dude's a millionaire. Good. Good deal. What does it really matter? That dude's a workaholic. That's what they tell me at work. You're a workaholic, man. That's all you think about. Is that what defines us? Is that the principles that we want to live on? Is that your priority? Is that how you want to be remembered by your kids? Some of those things aren't bad in themselves, are they? There's another one in this book, and again, you can see these are little short things, so like I said, I don't read big books or novels. It says, "Do not let the good things in life rob you of the best things in life." What's the best thing you can hope for in your life tonight? Just take a second and think about your priorities. What's the best thing you can hope for? Heaven, isn't it? It doesn't get any better than that. You know, my job, hopefully I keep it. Don't get me wrong, I got bills to pay. Joy and I are buying airplanes right now at Delta State, so we got bills to pay. I hope I keep it. It could change, though. 14 years at a company, and one button changed my whole direction and my whole priority. That fast, what I thought was set in stone for me was over. A friend of mine lost a job a couple months ago. Been there 10, 11 years. They walked in, "We're moving. You're out of a job, closing in August." It happens all the time. If that's your priority, if that becomes your driving force, if athletics become your driving force, what are you going to do when it's not there anymore? You know, Drake came to watch, he was in town and came to watch a softball game the other night, and he said, "You run like you got cinder blocks on your feet now." And I said, "I used not to. A long time ago it was different. But now you just want to get through, don't you?" Is God your priority? Let me read another passage to you here, and this is in Matthew chapter 12, or Mark 12, excuse me. It says, "Jesus said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment, and the second is like, namely, this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." And then in Matthew chapter 6, in verse 33, it says, "But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." What's the number one priority you and I should have tonight? It's God. You want to be successful as a parent? You better make God number one. You want to be successful as a wife, a husband? You better make God number one. You want to be successful as an employee, an employer, a co-worker, or whatever you do for a living, you better make God number one. If God's not number one, you won't make it. You might make it a while. You might make it for a long while. You might make it till you die. But the judgment's coming. And I don't think when you get there that God's going to care whether you hit 50 home runs or whether you made $50,000 a week, either way. Because he's the one that gave it to you to begin with, so I don't think he really is going to care. What he is going to ask you is, did I know you? And did you serve me? And you're not going to fool him when it gets down to it, are you? There's no fooling him about your priorities. Show me what you pay attention to, and I'll tell you who you are. Who are we as a church? Look around at all these empty seats. Somebody's priorities are way out of whack. And I know there's people that are sick, and I know there's people out of town, and I know there's people out of work, so I'm not pointing fingers at anybody like that. But what I'm telling you is there should be extra seats we're having to drag out to fill this up. Somebody's priorities are out of whack. You ought to want to be here. I ought to want to be here. If I don't, my priorities are messed up. We choose a lot of times to come up with reasons that keep us from serving God and doing what God tells us to do. God said, I want to be number one. I better be number one. He deserves to be number one. He created you. He created me. He gives me the breath I've got every day to get up and go to work. He gives me the health I've got every day to get up and to go to work. There's somebody that would love to be doing my job. As bad tomorrow as by noon, I'll be thinking, man, what am I doing? I wish I could find something. It'll just drive you crazy. Somebody wants your job. God's given you the ability to do it. You've still got a job. Be thankful you got one. Be thankful you've got kids. Be thankful you got a husband, a wife, a family, grandkids. Whatever the case may be, God better be number one in it. And if He's not, your priorities are out of whack. Where are your priorities at tonight? Again, show me what you pay attention to, and I'll tell you who they are. If somebody looked at Church Road Baptist Church and looked at me and looked at you, would they say, that guy's a good Christian? Or would they say, that's the biggest hypocrite I've ever seen in my life? He talks it, but I hadn't seen him walk it yet. Everybody close your eyes, and we're going to pray, but I'm going to read. I asked Brother Billy about this hymnal, and I thought about it right before I came up here, so I'm going to read this to you. But close your eyes and just think about this with your priorities. O soul, are you weary and troubled? No light in the darkness you see. There's light for a look at the Savior, and life more abundant and free. Verse 3 says, His word shall not fail you, He promised. Believe Him, and all will be well. Then go to the world that is dying, His perfect salvation to tell. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Is God your priority tonight? Dear God, thank you again for allowing us to be here, and I pray that you would you've been dealing with me, I know, for it seems like a month or a month and a half now about priorities and about my priorities and doing some checkups and some thinking and some reevaluating where I'm at and where I've been, and I pray that you'd challenge everyone here tonight, not because something I said, not because I'm having an issue with it, but because they are, dear God. If they are, I pray that you'd put their priorities back in line. I pray you'd put my priorities in line and make you be number one day in and day out. Not just be my Savior, but to be the Lord of my life in the way that I live and the way that I choose to do things, dear God, that I'd seek to please you first and above everything else. Dear God, I pray that tonight, if there's someone here that's lost, I pray they'd make it a priority to get saved. Dear God, I pray that you would be with Mom and Dad as they come back this week. Just give them a safe trip as they come back. And again, thank you for all you do. In your name, amen.